mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patricia Callan. I'm the Director of the Small Firms Association, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for our webinar on what SFA membership can offer your business. We will be recording the webinar and it will be available on our website sfa.ie after the presentation today. If you do have any questions throughout, you can type them into the question section of the control panel during the webinar, and we will take questions at the end. And obviously you can also follow up with us directly on any queries you may have individually after the webinar as well. So just in terms of an overview, I'm going to firstly touch on small business in Ireland and give you some data around that. I'm then going to talk about the SFA as an organisation, and then talk about what we do in terms of voicing your priorities to government, looking at the business advice services that we offer, and then focusing in specifically to give you an example of the type of thing that we do around the whole area of contracts of employment. I'm then going to share with you some details around upcoming SFA events, and finally I'm going to show you how you can actually market your business to our community of 8,500 member companies. So just in relation to small firms in Ireland, and a small firm is one that is defined as having less than 50 employees. Micros are normally companies that have less than 10 employees, and then mediums are right up to 250. So our entire remit is around this small firm section of the economy, but that actually is the majority of businesses in the economy. 98% of all businesses are small, and they employ over half the private sector workforce. Indeed, in now 21 counties, since this slide was updated, we now are the majority employer in those counties. And in total, in terms of the total value of contribution to the Irish economy, it is 1/3 of the total value. So I think this is certainly why in more recent years we've been able to get our voice more effectively heard with government. There's always more things that we need done, but this is a huge focus now in terms of entrepreneurship and people being able to set up business. Our vision is for Ireland to be the most vibrant small business community in the world, which would support entrepreneurship, value small business and reward risk takers, and these are our major agendas. In our mission, we want to be the trusted partner of small businesses in Ireland, and practically day to day that means delivering business focused advice and insights to member companies, sharing the knowledge that we have from our network with each other, using that to influence government policy to the benefit of small businesses, and connecting our members in a thriving business community. We are also part of IBEC, which is the Irish Business and Employers Confederation, and in IBEC there are another 7,500 members on top of our 8,500 members, and we use that network in order to get expert insights from within sectors for our members to solve problems in a whole variety of areas that members would raise with us on any given day. So in terms of our priority areas for being the voice of small business in Ireland, the biggest issue at the moment that members are raising with us is obviously Brexit, and I'll deal with that separately shortly. But in practical terms, for many businesses, particularly those trading just in the domestic economy, the biggest concern is around costs and the rising costs in particular of employment, but also broader business costs like, for example, insurance, commercial rents, commercial rates, all of those things. And we do specific work on that through the Advisory Group on Small Business, which is established in the Department of Jobs and chaired by Minister Pat Breen, through the Retail Consultation Forum, which is chaired by Minister Mary Mitchell-O'Connor, and a whole variety of other fora throughout government. Given that it's also minority government, we're very actively involved with individual politicians across the entire political spectrum at trying to get them to propose things that would be good for business, but equally to oppose things that will actually make your lives more difficult. And we're constantly striving to reduce red tape and bureaucracy. We're also now shortly entering into the budgetary lobbying cycle again, and really we've been on a massive campaign for the last number of years around making the tax system fair for entrepreneurs. In particular, we've had improvements around the equivalent PAYE tax credit for self-employed, which we hope to see fully equalised in this year's budget. We've also seen improvements to the capital gains tax regime and to a whole variety of other schemes and supports that have been brought in. But again, each year we go back asking for more, because ultimately the more successful entrepreneurs there are, the greater the contribution of business and their employees to the exchequer, which can then be used for redistribution. But we need this business environment to be right. An ongoing campaign, which is still an issue, although less of one, is the whole issue around access to and the cost of finance. We represent companies specifically with the various banks. We also work with the Credit Review Office, the Strategic Banking Corporation, Microfinance Ireland, and a whole range of alternative finance providers to find solutions for member companies. We also lobby strongly around the whole area of public contracts and again represent individual businesses when they have problems in that regard, but also in that bigger policy work striving to improve the regime for people getting access to the public buying system. You may have seen yesterday another announcement around broadband, and this of course is a massive issue for members, particularly in the regions. So much now relies on having good infrastructure, and a major campaign of ours this year, again built around the whole Brexit proposition, is the fact that we need to be investing more in infrastructure in terms of roads, in terms of broadband, in terms of education, in terms of childcare, all to make our economy more competitive so that we'd be attractive for companies to come and establish here, but also attractive for small businesses to do business. So specifically on Brexit, it's obviously been something that we've been keeping close tabs on since the announcement last June. In broad terms, I think it's probably self-evident that the entire business community views this as a very big threat. 68% of our members in our most recent survey viewed this as negative, with just 10% seeing positive opportunities arising from it. Most practically, in the immediate aftermath of Brexit, what we found was that companies that were directly hit by the exchange rate had to move very fast in terms of dropping orders, in terms of trying to renegotiate pricing contracts. And certainly for our part with government, we've been actively working to find innovative financing solutions to help businesses with their cash flow difficulties arising from the exchange rate movements, and we expect some announcements on that in the near future. I think the bigger concern for us all is the fact that it has led to the postponement of investment decisions for many businesses. And people are expecting a loss of business in the UK market, but also potentially a loss of business here in the Irish market as UK businesses become more competitive and the exchange rate moves in their favour, particularly, for example, in terms of the food sector, and we're seeing import substitution on retail shelves. So there are many aspects of Brexit, and because of the concern, we have actually produced a definitive guide that we launched last week. You'll see an image of it there, but again, you can access that on our website, which talks through the top 10 things you should be considering in terms of doing scenario-based planning to prepare for this. It talks through the sector-by-sector impacts that we're likely to see. And then there's a toolkit at the back which you can use to actually work with your management teams to actually work through all of the likely outcomes. And regardless of the sector, whether you're exporting or not, you do need to understand how this might impact on your business and make appropriate steps, because it will certainly have an impact on every single business. We periodically survey our members, and I just thought I'd share some of these insights with you because I think this is a key part of our network. We don't have to wait for CSO data or for government accounts to tell us what's going on. Member companies tell us what they're doing, and by and large, I think the mood is still very positive amongst members. People seeing more opportunities than threats per se. We expect economic growth to still be around 3% this year and small business to create 20,000 new jobs. So that is certainly very positive. And for most member companies who are just trading in the domestic sector, the domestic economic growth piece is the most important. As long as consumer confidence is there, people are still willing to buy things, then that is certainly the biggest impact on most of our member companies. A lot of companies in the last year have looked at new branding and marketing campaigns. They've looked to design innovative new products. Many have identified specific sectoral opportunities, and indeed we're seeing a lot of sectors merging now and innovation coming with rather than siloed sector approaches. Many companies are looking to export. I think certainly in the past the UK was always that first port of call, but now people are looking at other more diversified markets. People are looking at acquiring other businesses, and we're seeing a lot of succession planning taking place with perhaps a lot of business owners still there who might have retired or sold their business, but during the recession they had to keep going. So we're seeing a lot more movement in that area. We're also seeing a huge move towards trading online, and in a sense businesses are trying to play catch up with consumers in this regard, and we have a massive job of work to get more businesses online in order to recapture that market and that spend that in the main is going abroad at the moment in terms of the retail sector in particular. And also we're seeing people have identified public procurement, government EU funding as opportunities for their business. In terms of the risks then, it's interesting that Brexit as a topic is still only the third highest risk. For most people, again, it's back to this domestic economy issues, and wage inflation in particular is very worrying, spurred on by a lot of the public sector pay disputes and semi-state disputes, and the sense that we have lost control. In real terms, inflation is still 0%. It hasn't moved since 2008, so there's certainly no cost of living wage justifications. There are issues obviously around housing, education, childcare that are well flagged, but by increasing wages we're not going to solve those problems. So our lobby to government on this is very much to tackle those as issues for the minority of people it affects, rather than costing the entire business community massive amounts in terms of unjustified wage inflation. About 60% of our members are saying they will give a pay increase this year. Where they're doing so, that's in the region of 2%, and it's very much based on local level productivity deals and innovation in businesses, rather than across the board pay rises. So we're seeing huge variations from 0 right up to 10, 20%, depending on skill levels and how critical certain skills are in certain industries. The second biggest risk people have identified is domestic economic stagnation, again because most people trade in the domestic economy. The exchange rate has been a massive impact. It's moved at its worst up to 24% devaluation. And for low margin businesses, food businesses in the order of 3 to 4%, that is simply unsustainable. It's back at a level now that most businesses can tolerate, but we would be worried certainly that people need to be making practical hedging measures, if not financial hedging, thinking about how they can hedge their business better from this risk. We're also seeing as the labour market tightens, unemployment has fallen again now down to 6.4%, and as I said, we expect to create 20,000 new jobs. But this poses massive issues in terms of companies attracting talent and retaining existing staff. So that's a huge focus of work for people at the moment. We've also identified legislative and regulatory burden as a massive issue for business, and that's also tied into the instability of the minority government, because for the first time ever we see a lot of private members' motions and bills getting through the Dáil into committee stage, where committees are now chaired by across the board by every single party. So we've seen a lot of potential negatives coming at us in the context of things like banning zero-hour contracts, looking at banded hours and really a lot more labour legislation. But equally, we've seen a lot of positive moves and reports around things that matter to us, like insurance costs, Brexit, etc. So it's about understanding that. But I think whenever there's instability in government, businesses also feel that it's unstable. So other business costs are also issues, and finally then cash flow and debt. And obviously for businesses for which these are issues, they're massive issues, but we've seen most businesses now back on track, gone beyond survival, and certainly in growth mode. So on top of our lobbying and our practical member insight sharing, we do have a dedicated business support and services helpline here. So we can give you specific advice about best practice on things like employment law, HR policies, about dealing with the revenue, finance, dealing with business law, all of those sorts of things. But certainly what we're best known for is our whole HR suite, and you'll see there on our website how many resources we have. We have guideline publications, sample policies, but most importantly, people can simply ring up and say, Joe walked in today, this thing happened, I need to dismiss him, whatever that might be, and we will talk you through it step by step. And I think that is certainly the greatest feedback on our services in that whole area, where we have a dedicated specialism. Our employment law guidelines were reissued in last December as a Christmas present to all members. Everyone got a hard copy, but they're also available online. And really what we're about is trying to make this area as easy as possible for you. There's over 40 primary pieces of legislation, so that's not easy. But we take you through it right from recruitment and interview questions through to contracts, leave entitlements, all the forms and letters and policies and procedures you need, right up to the finishing of that relationship, either by way of dismissal or redundancy or retirement or whatever it might be. We all keep you informed in terms of daily social media posts across all our broad spectrum of social media outlets. We also do a weekly e-zine, the Tuesday edition. So at 5:15 every Tuesday in your inbox you get the latest case law in terms of employment. You get suggested government supports that might be appropriate to you. We look at more recent reports and economic data, and we also outline useful insights and that other people are doing in the broader business community, and also then upcoming events that we profile. We do monthly webinars like this, quite often on very specific topics. It could be labour law, it could be how to grow your business, it could be on company law changes, whatever that might be. And again, you give us those topics and we run webinars for you. And then we have a quarterly magazine, A Better Business, which lands on your desk, and it's got a huge opportunity also for you to profile your business, as well as a good read in terms of what's going on in the broader business community. So just to touch on one of the areas that we are asked quite often for input, and I know some of the people on the call today have said they're specifically interested in, on the whole area of contracts of employment. Now, this is governed by a piece of legislation called the Terms of Employment Information Acts, and it means that essentially you have to give people a basic statement of terms and conditions within 2 months of your employee commencing. Now, we have samples on our website of the wording where literally they're Word documents, you simply fill in the blanks. If you want specific clauses that aren't in there, we can tailor them to suit your needs. But in summary, the main Act sets out what the terms are that must be included, and they are things like the name of your employer, the registered address, hours of work, pay, details of rest periods, annual leave entitlements, notice periods, and we go through that in detail. But equally, we give you advice about things that you should also be thinking about including, like, for example, probationary periods, layoff and short time, and other things that you will need, maybe confidentiality if it's in terms of management contracts and things like that. So in terms of the different types of contract types that you should consider using, firstly, there's the permanent or indefinite duration, which is essentially what most employees are hired on. There's no end date specified. And importantly, under the unfair dismissals legislation, you have the first year to really make up your mind as to whether somebody's going to work out. You manage them out through probation if it's not going to work out. But after that, it can be quite difficult to actually exit them from your business. So if you have a fixed term, you know that you want somebody to come in and do a piece of work for a guaranteed time with a start and finish date, then you would use a fixed term contract. Again, when it's properly worded, the key thing here is that you can avoid the Unfair Dismissals Acts during the period of this contract, and it can be up to 4 years in duration. So sometimes that will work better for people. Equally, I think very usefully, people should do a specified purpose contract if, for example, you're not sure the exact dates, but you have a specific purpose. For example, if somebody has gone on sick leave to cover that person's absence, similarly with maternity leave, where dates can vary and you don't want to have somebody leave at the end of a set period and then have to find somebody else maybe to cover another few months, because that's really difficult, particularly in this labour market. So in terms of the broader discourse, I guess, about contracts in the public, and a lot of this again has been driven by the government party, well, not the government parties, but by people in the Dáil. There's been a lot of discussion, so I thought I'd just touch on this to outline to you what these things mean when people are talking about them. So a 0 hours contract is where a lot of the debate has been, but actually very few employers use these in Ireland because it's actually very expensive for employers to use them. So under a 0 hours contract, the employee has to be available to work for a certain number of hours, but they don't have specific working hours. So you just say, literally you can call them up, but they have to be around and come in whenever you call. So because there is that commitment, employees are entitled to be compensated for 25% of the hours available, or 15 hours, whichever is less. So you could end up having to pay people even when they're not at work. So again, I think that the debate around that has been fueled by all sorts of lack of evidence. But what is certainly more commonly used and is now under threat is if and when contracts. So the casual type contract, where you have a panel of people that could come in, for example, to cater in a function in a hotel or whatever, and the employee is not required to be available. You bring them up. If they say no, that's fine, they're on the list the next night. And that is the big difference here. There isn't a guarantee on either side. But now what we're fighting in terms of lobbying proposals is situations where you might have to be forced into giving people banded hours contracts, so guaranteeing them a certain number of hours if they regularly work them, and all sorts of other things. But again, these types of things are complex, so certainly give us a call and we can talk you through them, and we do have all of those specimens available. So just then moving on to look at the various events, and obviously we're a network of 8,500 members. People want to talk to each other, they want to know what's going on, they want to share best practice, but they also want to do business with each other. And we enable all of these through a variety of events. We have our flagship events such as our annual lunch, which is over 500 people in attendance. Many companies attend and bring their clients to that. We have run the National Small Business Awards, which is a 6-month period of events from launching in September right up until the gala in March. And the finalists in that programme get fantastic prizes. They get a residential strategic management masterclass, an interview in the Irish Independent, an exhibition stand at our national showcase in the RDS. It's free to enter, and I'd certainly encourage everyone to check that out. It's sfa.ie/awards. We also run employment law conferences, we run speed networking events, we run these webinars, and every month we also physically run a Business Bite event, which is an evening event with a bit of networking, but more importantly, expert topics to inform you. And if you would like further training, we have Unlock Your Potential, our suite of training programs. Most of our events, in terms of all of our shorter events, are free of charge, and all of the others in terms of training and the bigger events, they would have a specific, very generous member rate. So this is a list just of our upcoming events to give you a flavour. Again, if anyone is interested in membership and would like to come along, for example, to our next Business Bites to test us out and see what it's all about, you're more than welcome to join us, and you can certainly contact us in that regard. Also, to flag our annual conference date then, it's going to be a fantastic half-day event in the RDS on the 24th of May called Better Than Best. So many members would like to raise their profile with other businesses, and we have our fantastic new magazine, which you'll see there. The company on the cover there actually won a competition to be on the cover, so that's certainly something that is worth entering. It was sponsored by Virgin Mobile in this case. But we also have plenty of pages inside to profile member news, to ask members to give their expert opinion on topics that we might be covering. So it's a great resource for members. It's distributed to all members, but it's also available in retail stores. We also run many networking events that I've just run through, but we also have a dedicated member spotlight. So if you want to talk about your business for 90 seconds at the start of these events, you can contact us and be able to pitch to an entire room, normally of 80 to 100 people. There's free advertising on our website, which is over 3 million visits a year. And we also have an SFA member badge for you to use on the footer of your email, on your letterhead, wherever you might, so you can identify other members and choose to do business with them. So I'm now going to pause and see if there are any questions that have come in. So one of the questions that has come in is just generally what kind of companies are in membership of the SFA. And actually it's where we're quite unique in that we don't have any sectoral focus. We have absolutely every sector. I would say that about half of our members are in the greater Dublin region and half are spread right throughout the country. So we have members and champions in every single county. A lot of people choose to join us for that information business advice service. A lot of people think there's huge value in the networking. And then, although there's a free rider issue around the policy that everyone benefits whether you're involved or not, I think the key differential is that members can input into our policy work. They can raise issues with us. They can get that sentiment data and other factual data, like, for example, our rates of pay survey on exactly what is the going rate for every job. So a lot of that is invaluable. So the broad spectrum of members, I think, is really important. But we've also developed membership propositions, SFA Plus, with various sector organisations within our IBEC organisation. So if you're in medtech or technology or property, then or food and drink, there's a specific offering where we give you some access to those sectoral offers as well as our own membership. Somebody's just asked me how many members we have. We have 8,500 members in the SFA, and then there's an additional 7,500 in the broader IBEC network. So we do have a huge coverage in terms of we're the largest small firm representative body in Ireland. Another question has just come in just specifically around employment law on discipline and dismissal in terms of how they would handle a disciplinary issue. Well, again, in terms of if there is an issue, certainly my first suggestion to you would be to ring us and we'll talk you through the specific issue. We also have a practical guide, how-to guide in terms of exactly how you should go about that, and then sample warning letters should they be needed. So I think that's the critical thing, is just that you start off with a proper procedure, that you have a disciplinary procedure in place, you contact us about the issue, then we will advise you. In most cases, if you would call the employee into an investigatory meeting, then you would bring them into a disciplinary meeting where they have a right to be represented, a right of reply, a right to their for their side of the story, and then you would take a couple of days, come to your decision, and then decide on the warning level, issue the warning notice, and then as the issue evolves, if there's no improvement, then come back to us on that. But each thing is very different, so it's definitely one for individual advice. Okay, I think that's all the questions that have come in so far. As I say, we're absolutely happy. Louise here is right beside me to help out as well. I just finish off by offering you a very special membership join us offer, because you've taken the time to join us on the call today. So if you sign up before the 14th of April, we will give you one free ticket to the SFA annual conference. In terms of our subscription fees, we range from €575 plus VAT, which covers any company that has up to 20 employees, right up to our top rate is €830 plus VAT, and that's for the 40 to 50 employee category. And you can pay by monthly direct debit or all at once. We have it join us now on our web page, and also my colleague Louise is happy to take your call and talk through any issues that you may have around that. So certainly I'd encourage you to do that. It's a great opportunity to come along the conference. About 300 people will be there. Fantastic speakers, and people really do tend to get a lot out of the day. I've also just put here, we'll circulate the slides afterwards, so some useful direct links to various pages on our website that you may be interested in to bring you directly where to. But again, if anyone has anything specific that they want you to talk through, happy to do that as well. So just a final thought, being in business for yourself doesn't mean being in business by yourself. What most people say to me they value most is quite often it's quite isolating being an owner-manager. You may not have a big management team. We are that voice outside that you can run things by, that you can sense check things, and that we can find you get the right answer. Even if we don't have the expertise ourselves, through the network we've built up, we can solve problems for you. So do approach us about any issue that you might like or that's causing you problems. So I'd like to thank you for attending the webinar today, and I'd also like you to please fill in our short feedback survey that will be sent to you, and certainly we'd be delighted to hear from you into the future. Thank you very much for tuning in.